Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. My name is Cynthia Ruiz, and I will be your facilitator for the next hour. And I was looking at my title slide and realized I have the wrong time because the reason I have the wrong time is because I am in Los Angeles. I know many of you are, different places in the United States. So wherever you are, happy Saturday. So excited to spend some time with you today. So, the first thing I do is I always start everything that I do with gratitude. So, first and foremost, I want to express my gratitude to you for even showing up today. And I want to express my gratitude to the staff of CCO for putting this amazing event together. Now, whether or not you're with me live or watching the recording of this, I want to say that I'm thankful for your time, for listening, and hopefully you'll walk away with a little bit of wisdom. Now, also along the lines of gratitude, since I am in Los Angeles, I like to start with land acknowledgement. I would like to acknowledge the first peoples of the land of the within the city of Los Angeles. And the first peoples in my area are the Tongva and the Gabrielino tribes. A little bit north of Los Angeles, we also had the Chumash Indians. So I feel it's very important wherever you are. Obviously, even with Oklahoma, we weren't really the first people of that land because, as we all know, through the Trail of Tears, we came from the South. But, it's important to really acknowledge the first people that were here. So I wanted to make sure I did that. And because I am talking about gratitude, I want to express my gratitude to our amazing principal chief, Chuck Hoskins Jr., who has been a tremendous leader during this very challenging and difficult time. So, today, what am I going to be talking about? I'm going to be talking about resiliency in our communities and changing with the time. So, very briefly, I don't want to spend a lot of time on my bio and background, but just to kind of give you some context, I am a Cherokee citizen. I'm Cherokee on my mom's side, and my mom and my grandmother, they're all from Oklahoma. And then on my dad's side, Latina, I'm Mexican. So I actually come from blended cultures. But I actually like to say that I get my passion for life and love for music and dance from being Latina, and then my spirituality, love for Mother Nature, and my wisdom from my Cherokee side. So I'm a professor. I teach leadership at the graduate level. I am an author, proud to say that I've written a total of 6 books. My seventh book is a collaboration, and it's coming out next month, and I'm already working on my eighth book. But why, being an author is important in Cherokee because we're storytellers, right? And it's about telling our stories. I have my own business. I'm an executive coach, which means I work with high level executives to coach them to become better leaders. I also have been appointed by the mayor of the city of Los Angeles to be president of the City of Los Angeles Pension Board, which means on the pension board, I'm a trustee and I oversee $23 billion worth of investments. So I'm blessed and grateful, and I'm here to share some information with you today. So let's jump in and let's get started. So the first thing I want to do is because, we're in different parts of the United States and with the at-large communities, we're all over. So I have a message to the community. And first of all, I want to really emphasize to everybody listening and watching today is that we are one people. We are one people because I know sometimes people say, I've heard people tell other people, well, you don't look Cherokee, or you don't act like a Cherokee, or, you live in Los Angeles, maybe you're not Cherokee. So, we are taught by our spiritual elders that we are one people. So it doesn't matter the degree of blood you have as a Cherokee. What matters is that we all have Cherokee blood. And guess what? That Cherokee blood goes to our heart, and we have a Cherokee heart that makes us strong and resilient people. And that's what this conference is all about today, being resilient. So we are one people. So treat everybody the same, treat everybody with respect because we are one people, irregardless of where you're at in the United States. And the other thing is, we're one community despite our differences. We may have differences of opinions. We may have, we may look a little bit different. You know, Instead of focusing on our differences, what we need to focus on is what we have in common. And what do we have in common? What we have in common is the desire to serve our Cherokee community and help the community grow strong. We also know that we need to work together for future generations. In our Cherokee values, we are taught to take into consideration 7 generations in the past and consider 7 generations in the future. So, as a community, whether or not you live on the reservation or whether or not you live anywhere in the United States, we need to come together as one to really help our people and our community thrive. And, for all those leaders out there, your at large leaders, thank you for everything that you do because I know it's not always easy to be out there working for our community. But you know what? Our community deserves it. Our future generations deserve it. And we want to make sure that our future generations are thriving. So, what does resiliency in our community look like? Well, I'd like to talk about 5 areas today that I think that we need to focus on when we're talking about resiliency in the community. So, their leadership, connecting with Cherokee Nation, building our organizational infrastructure, connecting with our local communities, and embracing change. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today and sharing with you. So let's start off with the topic of leadership. Well, I believe that changing with the times requires leadership. And let me just say that change is not always easy. It's really not because by human nature, people don't like change. So when we're trying to implement change or react to change in our community, I think a lot of us had to react to change in our communities over the last year when this pandemic. If we don't change, we're going to get left behind. And I know there's a lot of resistance to change. And I don't want to get too political because I'm not here to give a political speech. But one of the things a lot of people have resisted is becoming vaccinated. I'm personally vaccinated. I get it. It's a personal choice. But I also believe that we have a responsibility for ourselves and our community to keep us safe. And I'm living proof. So I have been vaccinated. But a couple weeks ago, one of my friends who I spent some quality time with came down with COVID. She's vaccinated too. But if I hadn't been vaccinated, I probably would have got COVID. But because I'm vaccinated and I take care of myself, I did not get it and I tested negative. So it's changing with the times and realizing that becoming vaccinated is something that's going to help everybody. But again, it's all about choice. And if you choose not to, I'm not, it's your choice. But for me, what works for me is getting vaccinated. And I heard a statistic that 70% of the Cherokee Nation employees are vaccinated. So, I feel like we all know somebody that has passed away during the last year. So it's been a challenging year filled with a lot of change. So that's one type of change, but many people resist change. And I like to say that there's no guarantees in life. The only three things that we're guaranteed is that, first of all, in the United States, we're going to pay taxes, right? Everybody has to pay taxes. Second of all, we all unfortunately are, nobody lasts forever. So at some point, we're going to make our transition. I like to think that we all come into this world with an expiration date. We just don't know what it is, when it is. And, that's nobody escapes that. Nobody lasts forever. And the third thing is that there's always going to be change. And so, because there's always going to be change, we embrace change and adapt to it. It makes our life much easier. And I know that for me, I have friends that have not wanted to adapt to technology. They actually resist technology. But nowadays, no matter what you're doing, technology is such a vital part. I have a friend that he's like, I don't need technology. I hate technology. Well, he got laid off during the pandemic and now he just got a new job. And so the first thing they did, they didn't even interview him in person. They interviewed him on Zoom. And he called me up. He's like, please help me. I don't know how to work Zoom. And I said, well, you have to embrace technology for a lot of different reasons. But he didn't like it. He didn't want to change. But if you don't change, the world's going to leave you behind. So it's important as leaders, and we're community leaders, we're at large leaders. It's important that as leaders, we need to lead the way through these changing times because we need to be the ones that are leading by example. Because guess what? Leading by example, the community is watching, our kids are watching, people are watching. So if we don't lead our community through these changing times, shame on us. So let me step back for a minute and talk about what is leadership, because I keep saying that we need leadership during these changing times, leadership in our communities. So what is leadership? What is a definition of leadership? Well, if you Google leadership books, there are over 60,000 books written on leadership. So, as a result, leadership is not a one size fits all. And there's no one definition of what leadership is, or we wouldn't have 60,000 books written about it. So, because I'm a leadership expert and I'm a professor teaching leadership, I've studied leadership many, many years. I actually had the opportunity to take a leadership class at Harvard, and I really boiled it down to the most simple terms. And leadership is the ability to influence others. Let me say that again. Leadership is the ability to influence others. And guess what? We all influence others. If you're a parent, you influence others. You're a community leader, you influence others. If you're involved in sports, you influence others. If you're on social media, you influence others. So the point is, we all are leaders because we all influence others. However, with leadership and influence, it can be positive or negative. If you look at historical leadership in the world, one of the most prominent leaders, or in the historical perspective, was Adolf Hitler. Now, Adolf Hitler, he was a leader because he influenced a lot of people, but all of his influence was in a negative way. And look at how many Jewish people he killed with his influence. So you really have to be aware that your leadership and your influence can be positive or negative. So, as community leaders, we need to make sure we have a responsibility to our community to make sure that the influence that we are having on our community is positive. We have a responsibility. We rest on the shoulders of our ancestors, and we have to make them proud. And we have to be leaders in our community to support Cherokee Nation and support our Cherokee people as we go into the future. So, in my opinion, you can boil it down to leadership is the ability to influence others. Now, I believe that resiliency starts with servant leadership. Now, what is servant leadership? Servant leadership hasn't been around that long. It's been around, or the term servant leadership has only been around about 25, 30 years. And so it's a philosophy where the leader believes that they are to be of service to the people they are leading. Now, this is very different than some of the traditional styles of leadership because some of the traditional styles of leadership, say, for example, autocratic leader. Autocratic leader is the person that's a leader and they're like dictators or in the military and they're like, okay, it's my way or the highway. I'm here to tell you what to do. Whereas servant leadership is the exact opposite. The leader believes that they're there to serve the community. So I'm asking you, as a community leader in the at large citizens or the at large communities, to think of yourself as a servant leader. And I'm proud to say that Cherokee Nation, our head honcho, is a servant leader. He identifies himself with servant leadership. And I actually wanted to share a quote that I received from our principal chief. And he said, as the leader of the Cherokee people, it comes with responsibility, but great opportunities to help my people grow stronger and go further. That's a quote that I received from our principal chief, Chuck Hoskin Jr. I have, I think personally that he's doing a fabulous job. One of the things that I'm so proud that he's done as a servant leader is really, ask for this our delegate, our seat in Congress, because as we all know that the last treaty that the Cherokees had with the government promised us a seat in Congress. So he's going after that seat. So he is a servant leader because he wants us to have a seat at the table. So servant leadership is all of us should be servant leaders in our community. Now, I talked about, what that means to our community in terms of being resilient, and it's staying connected with the Cherokee Nation. Now, I'm the first person to admit because I'm in Los Angeles, sometimes I feel like I'm not connected to Cherokee Nation. I feel like, I'm out here in Los Angeles, although in the state of California, there's over 20,000 registered Cherokee citizens, but I didn't for a long time always feel connected to Cherokee Nation. So guess what? I decided that it was my responsibility to actively stay connected. It's not Cherokee's Nation's responsibility to come out and find me. It's my responsibility to be connected to Cherokee Nation. So what I did is I make sure that I go visit the Cherokee Nation website on a regular basis to get updated. I actually signed up for the chief's newsletter. He does a great newsletter. And if you're not already connected, which I'm sure you probably are, but if you're not, you can sign up for his new newsletters to get, updates all the time. So that has such valuable information. I also stay connected by visiting the Cherokee Nation YouTube channel. There are some amazing videos on the Cherokee Nation YouTube channel, hundreds, if not thousands of videos to teach us about our history, our culture, our language, hear from our national treasures. There's a wealth of information on the Cherokee Nation YouTube channel. So it's our responsibility to seek that information out. You can also, a great resource to stay connected is the Cherokee Nation Facebook page. That they have so much valuable information and updates and telling the story of what's going on with Cherokee Nation. And thousands of people have signed up for that. So stay connected to Cherokee Nation through social media. Also attend workshops and webinars on a regular basis for the at-large community. They have legislative updates. They have workshops about how to build capacity in our organizations. There's so much good information, but it's our responsibility as community, at-large community leaders to go out and seek that information, not expect, you know, them to come to us. I mean, the reality is the Cherokee Nation is now around 400,000 citizens. So as you can imagine, 400,000 citizens, each person has different needs. So it's our job to stay connected to Cherokee Nation. Also, CCO has a lot of great information on their social media, their Facebook, and CCO also has their own separate YouTube channel with a lot of amazing content. So the point, you get the point. The point is, as community leaders, it's our job to stay connected to Cherokee Nation and learn what's going on in Cherokee Nation so we can talk to our community about it. The big one recently is how under this administration, every Cherokee citizen had the ability to request $2,000 as a part of their response to COVID and the CARES money. And so we locally in Los Angeles really tried to get the word out. So there's a lot of benefits of staying connected to Cherokee Nation. The next thing I want to talk about is building organizational infrastructure. So here in Los Angeles, I'm very involved. I'm a council member on Chalagi, Los Angeles, Cherokee's Los Angeles. And it's about building the organizational infrastructure in our at-large communities. So the structure should be in place and it's not dependent on any individual. Because the reality is, and we've all seen this in our organizations, our respective at-large organizations, is that people come and go. There ebbs and flows. Sometimes people are more involved, and for whatever reason, they become less involved. So what you want to do is you want to build an organization that has a structure so it doesn't matter who the players are. The structure will outlast any one individual. And the structure is, I'm sure we have to have bylaws, right? And so bylaws, like for our organization, the bylaws have been around a long time. So what we recently did, or we're in the process of doing, is revisiting the bylaws. Because today we're talking about change, things can change. And how do we update? Like one of the council membership roles we had is for historian. And so we found that maybe historian might not be the best way to use our council members. Maybe we need to add, a youth rep instead of having a historian. So it's good to, everybody has bylaws, but it's good to revisit them and take a look at them from time to time. We also, make sure that you're very clear on what your mission is with your at-large community organization. And to me, what I like to use the mission statement for is our guidepost. So everything we do as an organization should be tied to our mission statement. It's also important to make sure that you're having training for your council members. Now, the beauty about the at-large communities is that people are involved, come from different walks of life and different experiences. So when a new council member is coming in, they may not have the same level of expertise as the others, and that's okay. But what you do need to do is when new people come on the council, you need to make sure that they get the training, that they can access the resources, that they know about all the amazing information that Cherokee Nation has, so they can, come up to speed with the rest of the group. establish a website. So the local organization in Los Angeles, we have a website, and I know because I'm the one that manages it, so I have to update it on a regular basis. And I'm always amazed how many people visit our website. I don't even know how they find out about it, but through Google Analytics, I can tell. And last year alone, we had like 5,000 people visit our website. And so I don't know, the reason behind it, but hey, I'm happy because we had that many people. Also, it's important to create a database, a database of your membership. And so for us, the way that we have done this is we've created an Excel spreadsheet. And so as we have new members coming in or people in our area, we add them to our Excel database. And so on usually about a monthly basis or every other month, we send announcements for our meetings and updates. So we're making sure that we keep the database as current as possible. Because one of the things I learned is that I thought it was easy and that we would get that information from Cherokee Nation. And this is no disrespect to Cherokee Nation, but they don't give that information because of privacy of Cherokee citizens. So we had to establish our own database. And is it a lot of work? Yes. Is it a lot of work to keep it updated? Yes. But that's how we're able to keep track of our Cherokee citizens and our Cherokee supporters in Los Angeles. Now, next I want to talk about connecting with your local community. So there's so many different ways to connect with the local community. I just mentioned our database where we send out emails. We also have social media. So we have our own Facebook. We have videos on YouTube. Now, right now, I have to, in full disclosure, those are YouTube videos are run through my individual YouTube channel because we don't have a lot of council members and we don't have the bandwidth to be able to establish and operate our organization YouTube channel. But that YouTube is a great way to connect with people. What I like to do on our Facebook is share some of the videos from Cherokee Nation and CCO. Another way to connect it with your community, which is kind of old school, is mail postcards. We actually used to mail postcards to people. And why postcards, not letters, is because it's cheaper, right? Because it can get expensive if you're sending, mailers to a large database. Also, I know this is very time consuming, but sometimes you just got to pick up the phone and call some of your members to get them engaged, to let them know, what you have coming down the pipeline. One of the things that we made a strategic decision about a couple years ago with our local at-large community is that we wanted to provide experiences, not just meetings. Because when I first got involved, and again, I'm not criticizing anybody, we used to have meetings and we would come together and then we'd have a potluck after, which was enjoyable. But at the end of the day, people work hard, people have lives, and most people don't want to come and just sit in a meeting. So we said, how do we engage our community? Well, let's provide experiences. And so what we did is the type of experiences that we have are we brought a Cherokee a representative out from Oklahoma and had somebody teach us stickball. So stickball, we played a game of stickball, the men against the women. I'm happy to say the women won. And I liked it because as a woman, we didn't have any rules, right? The guys had rules, we didn't have any rules. So it was a lot of fun. We also, Will Rogers had a home in the outskirts of Los Angeles. So we took our members to Will Rogers' home, learned about the home, about him. So again, we're trying to shift our mindset from not just having meetings, but having experiences. We had Robert Lewis from Cherokee Nation. By that time, it was the pandemic, so it had to be virtual. But he came and talked to us about storytelling, which, as we know in Cherokee community, that's kind of the core of who we are, the storytelling. So, the point is that we're trying to create experiences, not just have meetings, because whether or not you have your meetings in the evening or on the weekend, we have ours on a Saturday. Nobody, a lot of people don't want to spend their time, weekends in just another meeting. So they want to have an experience. Our last meeting, we actually had some of the young people that did the ride along the Trail of Tears come out and talk about that, which was amazing. So again, create experiences. We also had a, Cherokee marble demonstration, which technology wasn't our friend that day because the demonstration was in Oklahoma, but you just got to go with the flow. We recorded it and put it through our channels. And also the understanding that, we got to change with the times. And our last in-person meeting that we had was January of 2020. That was amazing. We had a drumming circle, invited people from other tribes who came together, and it was a beautiful experience. But since then, we've been forced because of the pandemic to have virtual meetings. Now, personally, is that the best way to do it? Well, no. I mean, I like in-person meetings, but it's a way that we had to adapt to make sure that we were serving our community, staying connected to our community, and providing our community with information. So connecting with our local community, because that's at-large communities, that's what we're there for, to connect with our local Cherokees and Cherokee supporters so they feel connected to Cherokee Nation. So, because I'm talking about change today, I just want to take a minute, step back, and talk about the importance of embracing change. I already said, by human nature, most people don't like change. But if you don't embrace change, you're going to get left behind. So, I want to share a quote from Socrates. And remember, Socrates lived from 410 to 399 BC. So this is old, old, old thinking. And what Socrates said is that the secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. So the idea, the concept of embracing change has been around a long time ago. But with people and human nature in our community, it's that, tug and pull. Yes, we know we have to embrace change. It's been around, we've been informed a long, many, many years that, we need to embrace the new things, the new, build on the new. But, we still get resistance because people don't like change. And a lot of that, in my opinion, is because they're trying to control things instead of, welcoming the new, building on the new. And it's difficult. So change does not come easy. But the more we're able to be resilient, the more we're able to change as leaders, the more we are able to work with our communities and help our communities thrive. So I want to share a little bit about the theory about change, leading change for the future. This is one of my favorite books about the topic of change, leading change. This comes from John Cotter, who is out of Harvard University. And what he talks about is changing through organizations. Now, leading change to organizations. Now, for me, this is really has a business um, lens that it's looking through. But I also believe that some of these concepts or some of these ideas can be utilized in our individual at-large communities. And what he talks about in leading change for the future is really teamwork at the top. Teamwork at the top. And what does that mean? Well, in our at-large organizations, the council members are the top, right? And so it's really working together as a team. I like to say it takes teamwork to make the dream work. However, it sounds easy enough, right? Let's all work as a team. But it's not always that easy because you do have people with different ideas. You do have people that have different backgrounds. And so when we're coming together as a group, we need to find healthy ways to be able to resolve any of our conflict, to resolve any of our differences with keeping our eye on the prize. And what is the prize here is serving our community so our community can thrive. So it's really learning how to work as a team within your own council. I mean, I have been in not my particular council, but I've been in community meetings where some people become so disruptive. So, how do we really shape that teamwork? What does that look like for you and your individual organization? Now, what they also talk about is leading change through an organization is create and communicate the vision. So, in our at large community organizations, we have a mission. And so, what's the difference between a mission and a vision? So, the mission is the why. Why do you even exist? The vision is aspirational. What do we want to become? And for the at large communities, what do we want to become is a healthy community that supports each other, creates a safe space for us to share our Cherokee values and our language and our history and our culture, and at the same time, feel more connected to Cherokee Nation and each other, right? And so it's not only about keeping connected to Cherokee Nation, but connecting with other at large organizations so we do have that sense of oneness. The other thing in this book, it talks about creating short term wins. So, what do short term wins look like for our at large organizations? Well, maybe it's your goal, because remember I talked about that $2,000, the COVID relief money? Maybe the goal with your community is to get every citizen within your organization to apply for those funds, right? Apply for them. So everybody you want, your goal is 100% of your citizens within your organization to receive the funds. And remember, we have a long time to do that. We have until next year to be able to apply for those funds. Although according to the chief this morning, about 50% of all the citizens have already requested and received the money, which is huge, a tremendous amount. So, set goals. And when we have the short term wins, celebrate those wins. And the reason why I say the goal should be for the citizens, because we all know in our at large communities, you don't have to be a Cherokee citizen to participate. One of our amazing council members and very active, Todd Banks, who I adore and I respect so much, he's been a tremendous value. Now he is not a citizen, and it's okay if they're not citizens. But if we set the goal for people to get the COVID relief money, those do have to be citizens. So it's about embracing change, embracing people that support us that may not actually be citizens, and that's okay. And so the other thing that it talks about in this book is broad-based empowerment. Now, what does broad-based empowerment really mean? And how does that relate to us? It really means that in our community, our local communities, our at-large communities, that the people that we represent feel empowered to ask us questions, to reach out to us. They feel empowered to be able to participate, to come to our meetings. So it's really that broad base. So who are our constituencies, really helping them feel empowered. And there's many ways that you can do that. But I'm just wanting to share a little bit about some of the traditional leading through change from an organizational point of view. And some of this is going to apply to you as a Cherokee organization, and some won't. But I feel like we can always be open and learn from others. So, the next thing I want to talk about is the importance of investing in our young people. Because when we're talking about change, we understand that not everybody thinks the same. And some ideas are different based on generations. So the young people, and I'm going to have a very broad definition of young people here. So I know not everybody's going to agree to this. So I'm just going to call a young person anybody 40 years old or younger. You know, and I know some people say, well, their definition of a young person is somebody in their teens, but I'm just going to use that broad stroke. And I want to talk about generational differences and share with you. So we have the millennials. We all have heard the term millennials. My son's a millennial. And so millennials, you're a millennial if you're age 26 to 40. And that's why I'm using the 40 mark. 26 to 40, you fall in the generation of millennials. Now, Generation Z is if you're between the age of 15 to 25. And if you're under 15, you actually have your own generation, which they call Generation A. Now, why are we segregated into generations? Because each generation has its own uniqueness. And so part of really adapting to change is understanding that there are different generations that have different priorities, different beliefs. For example, Generation Z, I mean, they're pros on technology. I mean, they grew up with technology. Millennials too. Some of the other generations, the baby boomers, may not have grown up in technology, so it's a challenge for them. So, with the new generations, it's adapting and learning from them because at the end of the day, we can all learn from each other. But come on, we've all heard more mature people say, oh, those younger generations, I don't understand them. They're lazy, they're no good. And then when I hear people say that, I said, really? What did your grandparents say about your generation when you were young? And then they realized it always repeats itself. And it's not good or bad. I'm not putting judgment on it. It's just different. So we have to just first understand that each generation has its differences. For example, going back to Generation Z, they're the type of people, young people, that really believe in causes. They believe in causes and they will stand up for their causes. And we've seen this through the whole movement for the environment. The young people are really internationally are really standing up and say, you know what? We need to address climate change. We need to help the environment. We need to help Mother Earth because if we don't, it's not going to be there for them or their future generations, their grandkids. So they're very passionate about their causes. Also, Generation Z, they are the kind of generation that they are entrepreneurs. They really would rather work for themselves than work for somebody else. And the days of like my mom's generation of going to work for a company and being at that company your entire life, that's not so much the norm these days. Again, no judgment, good or bad. It's not the norm. It's the younger people feel like their skills are going to be how they're going to make their money. So generations, my mom's generation she worked for the County of Los Angeles. She was the Native American liaison to the Native American community. So she went to the county and had that one job her entire life. That's what she was taught. That's the way you get stability. Whereas Generation Z, they don't see that in their future. They don't see that they're going to go work for one company their entire life. What they see is that if they don't like a company, if the company doesn't share their values or they feel comfortable, they'll move on. Now, in the business world, this is creating quite a ruckus because, when you have a lot of turnover in a large company or organization, it costs you money. So they're saying, okay, we understand that there's generational differences. How do we work with these young people? And so, one of the things for your organizations you can do is give them a seat at the table. And as part of your council, make sure that you have one youth seat. So you're getting that perspective of young people and they're learning from you and you're learning from them. I also feel it's important with our young people that we mentor them. We mentor them. We share our knowledge and guidance. I know for me personally, growing up, I was the first person in my family to go to college. I didn't have mentors, and it was very, very challenging. So now I do a lot of mentoring because I want to help the young people. Also, our local councils or at-large communities can provide scholarships for our young people. I know Cherokee Nation has a fabulous program. They provide scholarships to thousands of people. And I know this, and I've worked with the educational department of Cherokee Nation because earlier this year, I did what was called a Generation Z leadership program because I wanted to share my knowledge. So I partnered with Abraham Bearpaw. Many of you may know Abraham Bearpaw. He actually is an employee of Cherokee Nation. He actually is the nephew of Wilma Mankiller, so he has a lot of great knowledge. And we partnered together. Number one, we wrote a book together. And then we partnered on doing this Generation Z leadership program. But since it was Generation Z, the videos that we did were in 15-minute increments. We knew we couldn't do an hour workshop or 2-hour workshop. You have to kind of give it to them in shorter time frames. So we did. And so, those lessons are still on CCO's YouTube channel. And I'm so proud to say, and I did that, I volunteered my time for that because that's how passionate I am about helping the young people. And between the actual live webinars, our first live webinar had 410 people, and then we had another 3,000 people go watch it on YouTube. So the first session has over 3,600 views. So the young people are hungry. The young people are hungry for this knowledge. So make sure we're mentoring them and supporting them so they can thrive. The next thing I want to do is we need to make sure that we are empowering our women. We know as Cherokees, women have always played a vital role in our culture, in our community. And here I wanted to share a quote from our only female principal chief, Wilma Mankiller, and she said, "Women in leadership roles can help restore balance and wholeness to our communities." Let me say that again because it's so powerful. Women in leadership roles can help restore balance and wholeness in our communities. So it's so important to make sure that we are supporting our women and making sure that we're giving them leadership roles. Now, the message I want to give to the men is to empower women does not mean that we're disempowering men. What it means is that we're restoring balance, because the last several hundred years, we have lived under a patriarchal society where the men have been in charge and the men have made money, which I'm not mad at men, but we've been out of balance. So as women, start to rise to their power and take leadership roles, it's about creating that balance. Because remember, Cherokees were taught to live in harmony and balance. That's what we strive for. So make sure that within your at large community, you're empowering the women, you're supporting the women, especially the young women, because they need to be able to stand in their truth and stand in their power. I also feel it's important to respect our elders. So on the right-hand side, you see all the different clans that we come from. We know we had 7 clans. And it's so important to help our elders and respect our elders, help them access services. It's also important to record their stories. Everybody has a story. And if we don't record their stories, either through video or writing or just listening to them, it could potentially be lost forever. And I can say this because a few months ago, my mom made her transition. And so on my mom's side, you know, all her siblings are gone. My grandparents are gone. Now my mom's gone. And so thank God I was able to really listen to some of the stories. And in the last 6 years of her life, she had dementia. So you never know when you're not going to have the opportunity to hear these stories. So make sure that we're respecting our elders by listening to what they have to say, listening to their teachings, listening to their words. And sometimes they also just want somebody to listen to them. So we need to make a concerted effort as community members to respect our elders. Okay, so for some reason that I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. And as I recap here, I just think it's so important for all of us to embrace change and get out of our comfort zone because change makes us feel uncomfortable, right? But once we get to that other side of the uncomfortableness, it really helps us see new things and new ways. And we are all in this to help our communities and help our communities thrive. So with that, I'm going to stop for a minute and I am going to see if there's any questions. Now, the way that you ask questions is you can put that in the chat. So the chat is below. So I'm going to ask you, if you don't have a question, tell me what organization you belong to and what part of the United States that you're in. Well, we have several people here, so I want to hear from you. So tell me, where are you from and do you have any questions? Okay, so the chat is open. And do we have, don't be shy, because remember, we're all leaders here. You're all community leaders from different at-large communities. Okay, so we have San Antonio, Texas. Wow. So San Antonio, Texas is amazing. I know San Antonio and Texas has had some challenges, but again, as a community leader, it's up to you to really make sure that you're helping your community thrive. I also, let's see, we have Wellington, Oklahoma. So Oklahoma's in the house. Hi. And I know that each community may have different challenges. You know, every community may have slightly different things that their issues are issues in their community. But one thing we do have in common, in addition to being Cherokee, is really the fact that we're all experiencing this pandemic in different ways. We have Kansas City. Hey, Kansas City. So my mom was actually born in Kansas City. So my grandmother was born in Oklahoma. This was before Oklahoma was a state. But then through, they went to Kansas City where my mom was born. And then through part of the whole relocation, they came out to Los Angeles. So, oh, Pam's with us, Los Angeles. So I just want to acknowledge Pam. Pam is one of my other council members, and she actually, her family has been played an integral part in keeping the people of Los Angeles connected to Cherokee Nation. Her mom was one of the founding members of our local council. She's been our membership chair, and she's been just a rock in our community. And her whole family are just examples of how Cherokee women are awesome and they can thrive. So we have 5 more minutes before we end this session, and just wanted to see if there were any questions. I can't believe one person doesn't have a question. Pam, come on, ask me anything. You're here. And I also want to say that I love to connect with people. So if you want to connect with me after, you can visit my website. My website is my name. So it's www.cynthiaruiz, cynthiamruiz.com. I'll drop that in the chat. And Sky just said, that it's nice. So nice to meet you. And so, again, it's really not about us as individuals. It's about us as community leaders coming together, not only to help our local at-large communities, but also to connect with each other and connect with Cherokee Nation. So what I am going to do is I am going to put my website and my email in the chat. So I would love to connect with anybody after the fact. And I'm doing this now. And so that's my email and then my website. And also I encourage you to, join on Facebook. Come and join the Cherokee LA Facebook community. You don't have to live in Los Angeles. I would love to share information with you, whether in Kansas City or Texas or Stone Mountain, Georgia. Hey, Stone Mountain. We all are one people. We all have a responsibility to work together for our future generations. So what I'm going to do, anybody that knows me knows that I like to do positive affirmations. So I'm going to ask everybody to sit up and stretch your shoulders a little bit. And I want you to repeat after me. Yeah, I know you're on mute, but I want you to repeat after me. I embrace change. Let's try that one again. I embrace change. I am a servant leader. I am a servant leader. I am resilient. I am resilient. I am here to help the Cherokee community thrive. I am here to help the Cherokee community thrive. From the bottom of my heart, I just want to express my gratitude for you listening and sharing this time with me. I hope that, our paths can cross again, because I really, just want to connect with each of you and help our community thrive. And so with that, I'm going to see if there are any Um, if anybody wants to, I know that Savannah's not on, but we're at our time. So I know that you're all eager to go to your next workshop, and I just want to thank you. Wado.